So, good evening. It is Tuesday, January 10th, 2023, 6:30 p.m. This is a meeting of the advisory committee. First of all, Happy New Year to everybody, and thanks for being here. So, first up on our agenda was the town moderator. I'm going to send him a message since he's not here. And in the meantime, why don't we just jump ahead to our animal control budget, because I see that we have Ms. Tower here. So I don't know if you can hear us, Phyllis. We can see your name, but we can't see you.
Yep, I can hear fine. Thank you.
Okay, great. So what I'll do, just give me 1 second. Sorry, I know it's kind of tiny, but you should hopefully all be able to see that. The animal control officer budget. Can you see that, Phyllis?
I can.
Okay. So why don't you just walk us through at a high level about what's covered here? And just so you know, we do have some new members to advisory, and I think it's also just in the public interest to have people understand what it is that's covered by the budget.
Okay, I'm not very good at this.
No, no worries.
Let's see. It looks like there's 2 spots for wages, which would be myself and an assistant.
Yeah.
With the purchase of services, I always mix this one up. I think this is for the phone and for that covers for the phone for $50 a month, if I'm right. Then there's supplies. I'm usually pretty good with that. I don't generally need new things every year. The supplies sometimes goes into, if I have overtime, sorry, not overtime, or over the budget on travel, is sometimes where some of that goes. I appreciate that the supplies is there, because if a piece of equipment breaks, it would be an issue. However, I pretty much have what I need, and don't generally need new things. And then the in-state travel would be mileage for going to calls.
Got it. So our town accountant sent out earlier today the expenditures through the first half of the year, and it looks like you're basically right at 50% for your wages, but haven't spent anything out of the purchase of services, supplies, or in-state travel lines yet. So I don't know if it's just a question of submitting reimbursements for the phone or what, but
That's exactly what it is.
Okay. So, but sounds like you're basically requesting a level funded budget for those 3 non-wage items.
Yes, please.
Okay. Let me just see. Does anybody have any questions for Phyllis? Nope. Okay. Well, hearing no questions, is there a motion to approve the animal control officer budget at a requested total of $22,682?
Just so you know, that does not include a COLA if there is one.
Yeah, and that's true of all of our budgets, right, Anachka?
Yes, it is.
So actually, let me just pause on that for a second. So let me know if you don't think this is a good way of doing it. My plan tonight was for us to vote on anything we felt we could vote on, and then flag if there's anything that we need to revote based on a change in numbers. We'll just do it later, but just get it done now so you can update the spreadsheet.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. All right. So with that, is there a motion?
I move we approve the animal control budget as described.
Okay. Is there a second?
I second.
All right. I have to do a roll call. Bob.
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
Greg.
Aye.
Craig. Oh, sorry. That was Craig. What about Greg?
Sorry. Aye.
And I'm yes as well. All right. Thanks. And thank you, Phyllis, for being with us tonight.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you.
Okay. I see our town moderator has joined. Hello, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Brian?
Good. I don't even think we need to pull up the spreadsheet because it's $50. But I did want to ask, it looks like it hasn't been spent the past couple of years. So could you just remind us what the budget is for and whether you think you need it for this year?
So I annually join the Massachusetts Moderators Association, which is in the past was 20. I think it might have been $30 this year. And sometimes I submit that for reimbursement and sometimes I forget. So there's a fee for joining that association. And then there's also a fee for the annual meeting. That $50 covers those two items. But you're right, I haven't actually necessarily spent it.
Well, you've
Doug,
spent
you
it,
should
you just
have
haven't
them
been
submit it to the
reimbursed.
town.
Excuse me?
Just have them build a town. And that way you don't have to.
Yeah, it's a very small organization run by volunteers. So they send an email out. That's all they do, and
Oh, I gotcha.
forward the email to somebody and say, "Can you write a check?" But I don't know how that would work. So I've always just done it myself.
Well, thank you. I would encourage you to get reimbursed because you're doing a lot as it is. So it'd be good to have that covered for you. Any questions about Doug's $50? All right, is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve the moderator budget.
I second that.
Okay, roll call. Bob,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Craig with a C,
Aye.
and Greg,
Aye.
and I'm yes as well. All right, thanks so much, Doug.
All right, thanks. Good luck.
Thanks, Doug. Take care.
Okay. Oh wow, the main event of the evening. Just kidding. Our town accountant, Anushka Rogers.
Okay.
All right, let me get the spreadsheet up. All right, take it away, Nanuchka.
All right. Salary is my salary. There's a step, not a COLA in that. The stipend is an annual stipend for being a certified governmental accountant. Purchase of services is our OPEB report, and that went up this year because we are now using a new firm. We reached that level where we needed to have more than just a kind of plug and play OPEB report. So this is the actuarial report. So that's $37.50 every year instead of every other. Software support is Vadar, our accounting system. The audit is the audit. So that will be the last. I think we had a 3-year plan. So this is our last one for the audit. And then we'll either have to have them rebid it, look somewhere else, but that's an FY25 problem. Supplies, office supplies, meetings for my MMAAA meetings and annual school.
Okay.
That's it.
Open to questions from anybody about this budget.
Nanushka, just as I'm capturing additional details here. So the purchase of services, let's see, we pay someone to prepare that report or something like that?
Yes, an actuarial firm we paid to do that now.
Okay.
Yeah. We
Great.
we had a just a kind of I don't even know how to describe it. It was kind of OPEB light, kind of just a general report, and now they're requiring much more information on our financial statements, so it needs to be done by an actuary.
Okay, thank you.
You
And
said,
sorry, go ahead, Craig.
back to salary, you said that was a step that did not include COLA. Will there also be a COLA increase?
I hope so. I don't know yet.
Oh, and just as a reminder, and I think, Craig, you weren't here in December, but I believe there's advisory is going to be posted jointly with the select board later this month on a Thursday. I think it's going to be the 26th maybe. And the town treasurer and HR director is going to be giving kind of a presentation about salary and wage study. And I think my guess is that the issue of compensation and maybe COLAs will be brought up in that meeting.
Okay, I'll be there. I wasn't trying to say we shouldn't give COLAs.
Oh, yeah, no. I just wanted you to know it's like going to be a bigger topic of conversation.
Yep.
So Ninotchka, you said that this $37.50 for the OPEB service, that's going to be an annual thing. And do we,
Mhm.
are we going to be using the same firm for a few years and then maybe rebidding, or how does that work?
Yeah, so they're brand new and I like them a lot, super responsive. They've been great, super, very helpful. So I would recommend staying with them. Reasonably priced, I think.
Okay. Any other questions? Nope. Okay. So is there a motion to approve the town accountant's budget for a total of 109,565, subject, of course, to potential changes based on wage and salary discussions later?
I move we approve the town accountant budget.
I second.
Okay, roll call. Bob,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Craig with a C,
Aye.
and Greg.
Aye.
And just so you know, I'm just literally going in the order that you appear on my screen. It's not like favorites or anything. Don't get
Sure you
jealous.
say that now.
Okay. So I'm sorry, I'm just trying to look to see whether I see Randy Heglin is joined. I don't know. I don't see Mark Case, and it's probably because we're actually a little bit ahead of schedule. Randy, if you're ready, we can kind of get started on some of the DPW items, or do you want to wait until Leslie has arrived?
No, we can get started if that's okay. Do you want me to try texting her as a reminder to her? I know she was
Sure,
planning, her and Mark were planning on, participating tonight, obviously.
Yeah, and honestly, we're running a little ahead. So if you wanted to shoot her a message and say, hey, they're actually a little faster than we had thought, that'd be great.
Okay, if you want to, I'll try multitasking. So if you want to get into mine and then we can, once Mark does join, we can stop and, go to Mark and then come back to mine.
Sure, that makes sense. So we can take them in any order that makes sense to you. There's obviously the order that it flows in the actual budget, but I don't know if it's easier for you to kind of go by like function.
We can just go the way in the order of the budget, 190 being first, the town buildings, that'd be fine.
Okay. So there we have town buildings.
It's the budget killer, the bane of my existence. Heating is for home building as well as the electric is the home building. Biggest line item there is repairs and maintenance, and it's kind of I don't want to say a wild card, but it's really a function of things that occur in each of the buildings. Brian, I think you just mentioned that Ninotchka had sent out December's status sheets, and if you look at the 5240, 195,240 repairs and maintenance, and also 5242, we had some pretty significant hits on those two line items. In the grounds and maintenance, it was basically the roof at the Memorial Field building wasn't anticipated. Well, it was anticipated. What I thought Parks and Rec budgeted it, and I didn't budget for it, so just things got mixed up in the budget preparation for last year. So it needed to be done. So we paid for it out of grounds and maintenance, being that it's a park. And we're looking at possibly reclassifying some of those larger expenses to the building maintenance warrant article. that was passed at the last town meeting. Repairs and maintenance also for this year, we had some pretty significant invoices, primarily related to, there was a couple big hits for some updates to the controls on each of the elevators, the public safety and the library. There was a new interpretation of the state rules and regulations, which required us to do an update to the programming and auto controls for the elevators, and that was a pretty expensive hit. I think that was around $8,000, $4,000 for each of them. Yeah, not cheap, and that was completely unexpected. So, you know, we were asked to level fund the budgets, and you know, I try and level fund it to the best of my ability, and we try and stay within the budget. But this year, it's kind of a wild card, the repairs and maintenance for buildings. I guess I'll entertain other questions if you want. The trash hauler, that is for the library. We pay the
Yeah.
trash for the library.
Yep. Yeah, I think we can take questions about this 190 town buildings budget, but then I see that our tree warden has joined too, so we'll hop over to that after we're done with this. So before we get into questions, I just wanted to note, so based on that ledger, it looks like 6 months into the year, we've already spent 92% of what was allocated
That's correct.
to town buildings. I know that we're going to talk a little bit about this at the end of the meeting. We're trying to take kind of a uniform approach to budgeting specific increases for things like electricity and oil and all that stuff. But from what I understand, the way you just described it, some of your biggest costs were actually from the repairs and maintenance and grounds maintenance this year. So do you think it's realistic to be level funding those two lines, these two right here? You know, I know one of them was kind of just the budget prep snafu between DPW and Parks and Rec, but do you think that can we get by with this for FY24?
The two biggest hits in the ground maintenance line item, the 5242, one of them, like I mentioned, was the roof at the Memorial Field, and the other was numerous service callouts for the irrigation system at Memorial Field. So those are the two biggest hits. We had, you know, some broken pipes. We had a pump issue. So I mean, they were both unexpected, but both things that we needed to do. My recommendation is to leave the ground maintenance alone, and you know, if the advisory board, you know, so deems, you know, looking in the past expenditures, you know, doing something with repairs and maintenance to make it more realistic. What a more realistic number would be at this point, I can't predict. Hopefully we're starting to get ahead of a lot of the, you know, a lot of the major items. Another big hit on repairs and maintenance was repair of the wastewater sewer pump station for the public safety and library. That was on the capital building assessment plan to replace, and we ended up, there was a short in the power line out to the pump station, so we ended up you know, redoing that. That was a pretty you would think it'd be a pretty simple repair, but it ended up being pretty expensive by the time you paid for the paving, paid for the, you know, the conduit and the wire and having an electrician there to do it, and then a couple of service calls related to the pump station company itself. So it ended up being closer to a $7,000 or $8,000 hit on the line item. Hopefully a lot of these issues are starting to get behind us. You know, since we made the repair at the pump station, it seems to be working as intended. The pumps are alternating the way they're supposed to. You know, it's really up to the board whether you want to adjust that or not, or leave it as is and have an understanding that at some point during the fiscal year, we may need to seek some additional funding for that line item rather than tying up into your budget.
Any other questions?
Randy, does the repairs and maintenance line take into account any of the recommendations from the town building assessment?
Yes, it did. The warrant article, we had a plan of which projects in the building assessment we were going to do. And some of the other immediate recommendations of that report were going to be paid for or are paid for out of our operating budget. For instance, the emergency lighting at the town hall, we upgraded all emergency lighting. That came out of our operating budget, but that was a building maintenance assessment, part of the assessment plan. So it was kind of, last year, it was kind of a mix of funding sources for those projects.
So do you expect that between FY23 and FY24 that you can cover all those immediate recommendations?
I'm still working on that with Don Lowe. We met yesterday, or the day before. I don't know, days don't mean anything yesterday. Today's only Tuesday. We were going over that again. I've developed a multi-year plan for the buildings to address the immediate and then everything that was recommended to be done within 5 years. And we're still going through those numbers and how we're funding those improvements, capital improvements, I think still remains to be determined. I'd still like to do it as a mixture of a warrant article, perhaps, and a budget line item. If it's a small item, we can cover. But there's some bigger projects potentially next year for the buildings.
Okay, thanks.
Unless there are any other questions, I think we'll probably wait until later tonight to vote on this because we may decide to adjust some of the energy numbers in this budget. But I think we've gotten probably the rest of the information that we would need to be able to vote on this unless there are other questions. Okay. All right, so we'll come back to this and why don't we go ahead with our tree warden. Mark Case. Hi.
Hello, everybody. I'm sorry. I thought I
Hey,
was
Mark.
on at 6. Hi. I thought I was on at 6:50. I'm sorry if I caused any problems.
No, we were running a little ahead.
Okay.
So we've got your budget up right here.
Mhm.
And would you mind just kind of walking us through the elements?
Sure. So obviously, do it a little out of order, but the tree trimming is what covers tree removal and trimming throughout the town right of ways mostly on the public right of ways. Like cemetery stuff sometimes, most of the time comes out of the cemetery, that kind of thing. But it's the trees that fall within the public right of way that is either trimmed or removed under that budget line item. And then we have the police details because anytime we work within town roadways, we're required to have a detail to work with our subcontractors. And then the 5,700 is the disposal. Obviously, most of the time, almost all the times, we're removing dead or diseased or decayed trees, so that there's no real wood value to them. So we haul it off site to a disposal yard, and the closest one is in Lancaster, which is Cross Stream Leasing. We've been using them for quite a few years. Last year, their price jumped dramatically. There is another disposal yard that's in Hopkinton that is a fair amount closer, cheaper by cubic yard. But once you figure in the trucking, it's just about a wash. So we're still continuing to use the one on Route 70 in Lancaster. And then obviously the salary for the tree warden, and that's pretty much the total budget.
Okay, no, great, thank you. So I'm actually going to share another document just because there may be people that hear us talk about these a lot but have never seen them. So let me just do that. So this is the expenditure ledger that goes out every month, and it basically you basically see right here the amount that was allocated to the tree warden budget in total, and then over here you have what's left as of 6 months in, which means, you know, roughly 28.5% of your budget has been spent. So we have this information for all the departments
Yes.
in town. I guess my question is, I think the past couple of years we've allocated 50,000 and 15,000 for tree trimming and disposal.
Correct.
Last year we didn't actually use all 50,000.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the reason for that is, well, one of the reasons for that is that's we still had National Grid in town taking care of 3 major circuits. So in that time frame, they removed approximately just shy of 180 trees, and they also supplied the police details. So there is still wood that is roadside that needs to be picked up and disposed of. Some of the ones that were in a tough situation or in the middle of an intersection, those trees were removed and disposed of. So last year, between having National Grid remove a lot of trees, and we had a little hard time getting our subcontractor in to do some work. Looking at this fiscal year right now, we're already pretty close to where we were for all of last year, and we still have obviously quite a bit of time before the end of June. So last year was just a little different than normal. Usually we're not giving back nearly that kind of money.
Yep. Yeah. So, okay. So for FY23, the budget is probably going to pan out to be roughly what was allocated or appropriated. And you're asking for the same amount for FY24. So are you feeling pretty sure that you'll need the 50,000 for the basically, 18 months from now, or could we reduce that at all? We don't want to reduce it if you're going to need it, but we also don't want to appropriate it if
we're not. I understand, and if we're not going to be using it, there's definitely way more than $50,000 worth of tree work that needs to be done throughout the town, and we kind of triage and do the worst trees or the trees that are in high traffic areas, or or what time allows us to do. So I don't have a problem. I think that we have no problem spending the 50,000. One of the things that we were trying to accomplish was quite a few years ago, we had a 2-year contract. The bid package went out. It was awarded to the lowest bidder. The lowest bidder was unable to perform much during the first fiscal year, carried it over because they had a 2-year contract. We did a bunch of work with them. They were absolutely horrible as far as production goes, and we were stuck with them, and we have worked very hard to get back to where we needed to be, because basically the amount of trees that they could do in a day versus amount of trees any other contractor we've ever used was just night and day.
Yep.
So we're still scampering a little bit to even get caught up with those.
Okay, no, thanks for that. All right, any other questions for Mr. Case?
Yes. What determines whether National Grid is going to be involved or not?
So National Grid goes through and they do it's like every 4 or 5 years they'll do some line trimming. They have a program that came to town about 7 years ago where they were upgrading a circuit from Northborough all the way through Bolton. And at that point, they were doing the hazard tree removals. So they would come through, do a list of trees that were that they felt were hazards or potential problems, and that's what they picked, that's what they worked on this last fiscal year, well, over the last course of 2 fiscal years, where they removed about 180 trees. We did have a couple tree hearings for ones that required tree hearings, and we passed up quite a few trees under my direction that we felt that, yes, they pointed out it could be a problem, but its benefits on these scenic roads outweighed the potential problems with the power lines.
Oh, Mark, actually, I did have a quick question. So the costs, any costs associated with a hearing, are those baked into your budget or somebody else's budget?
So if there's hearings for like a driveway or something like that, we pass that along to the applicant. So any of the hearings that go, because most of our roads are scenic roads in town, so it has to be piggybacked with the planning board, and usually we pass that on to the planning board, the cost of the hearings.
Okay.
And advertising.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thanks for walking us through that. Much appreciated. Is there a motion to approve the tree warden budget for 71,796?
I move we approve the tree warden budget.
I second.
Okay, roll call. Bob,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Craig,
Aye.
and Greg.
Aye.
And I'm also yes. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, everybody.
All right,
Take
have a
care.
great
Good
night.
Mark, take care.
All right, so really for the rest of the evening, we're going to focus on DPW, and then we'll kind of deal with some advisory committee business at the very end. But I just wanted to remind everybody, although we've asked our DPW director to kind of give us a little bit of an overview of the capital items. Really, the bulk of that discussion is going to happen in collaboration with Dawn Lowe. So I don't want us to get too focused on that tonight. I mean, we can ask some questions, but I don't want us to get too bogged down. And with that, why don't we go ahead to budget number 293? How does that sound? Okay.
Traffic lights.
Yep. Well, we're going to talk about electricity later. So do you have any comments on this budget, Randy?
No, it's pretty self-explanatory. The electric bill we received for the stoplights at Wattaquatic in Maine, it's still puzzles me because it's a bill we don't always, it doesn't come monthly, and it's kind of a strange bill. But other than that, it's pretty it's pretty self-explanatory. It also includes streetlights that we own and maintain. For instance, there's a couple on Fox Run. There's a couple more off of on Hudson Road at Subdivision. I was going to say Drumlin, but it's not Drumlin. My mind went blank, but there's a couple of streetlights there too that
Danforth.
Danforth, thank you. That we we maintain. The electrician will go and change the bulbs and ballasts or whatever when it's needed. We're looking at upgrading the ones on Fox Run at the beginning of the road to an LED as opposed to a metal halide. We already have a bulb. We think that'll work in that fixture. So hopefully that'll help with the electrical costs in the long term.
Yep. Now I know we only have $800 budgeted for repairs, but it looks like so far we haven't spent any of it. And so I'm wondering if you think, we could reasonably reduce that. And the reason I ask is because I have a feeling we're going to bump up electric by probably a couple $100. So if we could basically keep it close to level funded by reducing repairs, we should think about it.
Again, it's, if you look historically, there was a 735 back in a couple of years ago. So it's kind of, it's a function of when the light fails. Or if we decide to do some type of upgrade, if you want to take out a couple $100 and throw it into electrical and it affects not changing the bottom line, gives us the flexibility to spend to that bottom line anyway. So, but it's one of those things that a street light goes out, we need to repair it, it gets repaired. And we figure out how to pay for it after the fact.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, we'll vote on this one later tonight, but thank you. All right, here's the big one for you.
421. This is basically all of our general operating expenses, not road centric, but general departmental operating expenses. There's a couple of step increases in salary and wages, one for myself and the other one for Leslie, the secretary. You can see overtime has been pretty constant at that line item. There is a requested increase for 5,200, which is the purchase of surfaces. It's basically to reflect, past expenditures, and also it includes a new monthly lease for the plotter that's located in the basement of Town Hall. That's $414 a month. We're paying that out of this account as opposed to a Town Hall account. That's probably the biggest hit.
Okay.
Do we think we should move it to town hall? It seems like more of a town hall than a DPW.
Well, it's a good question. The ink and stuff, I think they paid for out of the town hall account. I mean, the intention was that the plotter would be available, the scanner would be available to, all town departments. I guess where it comes out of is 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Do you know what the increase in parts and supplies is for?
It was a 5487. It's just, it was an increase reflected to past expenditures. If there's vehicle repairs done other than in the winter, it comes out of that account. Caterpillar just had a 20% across the board increase on all of their parts. And nothing you order from Caterpillar is inexpensive these days.
Yep. I'm just looking, and it seems like the highway department budget year to date for FY23 is tracking at roughly what you would expect. Obviously some of the heating and electric is maybe a little higher. And then I noticed I think it's the purchase of services maybe we've used more of that, and that might be because of the lease, right?
Yeah, that's $414 a month.
Yeah. Okay.
So, yep.
All right. Well, with the exception of the heating and electric lines, do people have any other questions about 421? Basically, I'm assuming that if people don't have questions, then they would be prepared to vote in the affirmative once we talk about the energy costs. So if you don't think you're going to be a yes vote, we should get it out of the way now. Okay. I'm seeing some nods and all right, cool.
Yep.
All right. So 422, construction and maintenance. And maybe if you wouldn't mind, just explain a little bit more for the public about what's involved in this, because it is a big number. But I think a lot of people may not know what local improvements actually means.
Local improvements is basically any expenditure on the roadways. if there's a drain upgrade, if there's a replacing a catch basin, if there is sweeping of the roads, cleaning of the catch basins, all comes out of that local improvements account. It's it's basically anything that we do on the roads other than any ordinary maintenance, other than non-capital. If we've got like a major paving project or something, doesn't come out of local improvements, comes out of the 5842. This past year, we're paying. We applied for a FEMA grant for the Forbush Mill drain project, and the costs related to the preparation of the application for that funding, I paid for out of local improvements, as opposed to Chapter 90, or I think that's where the design itself is coming out of. I felt it was more appropriate to take it out of local improvements and not apply it to our Chapter 90 account.
Yep. So
things of that nature.
So for the current fiscal year, FY23, is there a plan for the $9,100 under public way safety?
That is typically the painting of the roadways, the painting of the white lines. That's Mary Chirono's. Every year we do paint the lines. There's a couple of years we had trouble. One year, if you recall, there was a paint issue, and they had the freezing temperatures in Texas. Another year we had that same year we could not get them in early. I think this year they did it in the fall, painted the lines. Going to have it done again in the spring. But that's the painting of the center lines, the white lines, all of the painted lines in town, the roadway. Total cost of that is about $30,000. So we usually tap the $9,100 first, and then the remainder goes into local improvements.
Okay. So past couple of years, you can see here the actuals. I don't think there was any spent, but it sounds like for FY23 and FY24, you probably will be spending that money.
Yeah, and there was also we haven't allocated it yet, but there was a special fund that came from the state called RAP. Don't ask me what it stands for, because I don't recall.
Winter Recovery Assistance Program.
Thank you, Nanoshka. And that can, we're going to do guardrails, and if there's any money left, I want to reallocate the roadway painting to that, because that's also an eligible expense under the RAP program.
Yep. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Not seeing any.
One of the other expenditures we've got, we signed a contract and issued a PO in the fall to replace, I think about 14 drain manholes in town. Contractor wasn't able to get that done before the end of the year, so he's probably going to come back in the springtime, and that was roughly about $1,000 manhole, so about $14,000 in addition.
Wow. Bob, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, I thought one of the little windows lit up, and so I thought somebody had a question. Okay, so we can vote on this one. Is there a motion to approve 422 for a total of $209,100?
I move we approve the construction and maintenance budget.
I second.
Okay, roll call. Bob,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Craig,
Aye.
Greg.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm a yes as well. Snow and ice. I have to knock on wood because so far it has been.
You're gonna jinx us. You're gonna jinx us.
I know I shouldn't say anything.
It's
All right.
coming.
I'll stop talking right now. Yeah, I almost don't want to say anything more. We should.
That's it. That is level funded, because you don't want to add any money to it because it locks you in future budget cycles. As everybody knows, there's a chapter of Mass General Laws that allows you to overexpend your line items related to snow and ice for the purpose of snow and ice. Yeah, just to give you an indication of the type of costs that we're dealing with this year. Last year, our snow and ice budget was 170,000, 180,000, and our total cost all in was a little over $403,000. And we had a relatively light season last year too. So just gives you an idea of the magnitude of the costs that we're looking at. We saw this year, salt go up from 62 $62 a ton to $74.40 a ton. Same thing with the treated salt that we started using, up from $85.50 to $94.40 a ton. We've also started, we're going to start using, we've got the system just about set up, using some liquids as well to do some pre-treatment, and also some pre-wetting of the salt to try and get some more effectiveness, so we can ultimately reduce our salt and make it more environmentally conscious. Try and use less salt, have less of a chance on the environment, but not sacrificing performance of the salt.
So if we could just take a couple minutes to make sure we all understand the way that you're still, even though we level fund basically this at 180, you're still tracking the actual expenditures within these subcategories. And so when you were talking about salt prices, that would be under this line, right? 5530.
That would be correct. Yep.
And then what about, I noticed like for supplies this year, I think we're already at like 18,000. So what's in supplies?
It's anything related to snow removal. Could be cutting edges for the plows. Could be this year we bought one snow blower to replace one of the aging ones with the town buildings. We put it under supplies.
Okay.
Trying to think, Alessia, you might be able to give me an idea what
Yeah,
else goes
well,
in there, but basically
in 421, we have a separate line item for parts. And that's for truck parts, etc. This supply line includes all truck parts, anything related to snow plowing. So it kind of combines
I see.
to, we don't have a separate line item for parts.
Parts
Got
would be
Do you understand?
repairs done by us, whereas repairs to vehicles are typically
Right.
done by outside vendors.
Got it.
Right. And any repairs done by outside vendors go under 5241.
Okay.
So
So-
anything they get for anything snow related for our trucks goes under supplies.
This may be a question for Ninotchka, but so I was wondering if it would be possible to call this line, these are actually snow removal contracts, right? These are when we pay people that are not in,
Contractors.
right? So could we call it like snow removal contracts?
I can call it whatever you want.
And then call this,
I would do contract services or something like that versus
Yeah.
maybe.
versus snow removal. Is
Yeah,
that what you said?
yeah, just contract services.
And could we change this to parts and supplies?
Sure.
Yeah, that would be better.
And the only reason why I wanted to change contract is because, the actuals for that can be all over the place. And so I think it's helpful for people to know, it's like we have people that are plowing the roads that aren't necessarily town employees, but we're paying them.
And just so people know, any new members, Greg, I'm looking at you. Like Randy said, if if we were to increase the budget, you can never go back down. So that's why it's so much significantly lower, because you are allowed to deficit spend. And I don't want to say it, but typically we're able to fund the deficit with all the other turnbacks in the budget. So we have not had to raise it on the recap, but we can. So, I mean, if for some reason the entire budget wouldn't cover it, we can then put it on the tax recap for next year, which, you know, people have different philosophies. My personal philosophy is I would rather do that and charge the taxpayers the exact amount of what it cost than bumping up a budget and taxing them for something that we may not even spend. That's kind of where I stand on that.
Any other questions about this before we vote? Okay, is there a motion to approve 423 for $180,000?
I move we approve the snow and ice budget for 180,000.
I second.
Okay, roll call. Bob,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Craig,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
and I'm a yes as well. I don't know why I just closed that spreadsheet out because we need it again. Just wanted to see all your smiling faces, that's all. Okay, great. So you got that, Nanachka?
Yes.
Okay. All right. 424.
Okay, on 424, I need to make a correction. I misspoke earlier. On traffic lights, that's strictly for the traffic lights. I mentioned street lights. The street lights
Oh, right.
repairs comes out of the 424. I apologize for the confusion. Just completely slipped my mind. We had this other account.
No problem. Any questions? We'll touch the electricity line in a little bit, but I mean, this
I have
is
a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm surprised that we have any non-LED lights as street lights.
What's the question?
Not a question.
Okay, why have we not updated to much cheaper electricity usage, lower electricity usage lighting?
As I mentioned, as the lights fail, we are upgrading them to the LEDs. You know, I think the bulbs, Boudry was just in a couple weeks ago. The ones we were looking at for Fox Run, you know, for the labor and everything to go and change those bulbs would have been a couple $100. And you know, I'm just looking at the overall, what's the payback of a couple $100 on with the current, you know, the current repairs. I think I'd rather continue the way we're doing, and you know, maybe we're going to do Fox Run. There's only a couple lights there. Maybe do both of them at the same time.
How many street lights do we
I mean,
have in Bolton?
Now the street lights on poles are all LED, to my knowledge. They were changed out prior to my arrival in town. I'm talking about the underground wired specialty lights. Are the ones
Danforth,
that are still Danforth.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll come back to that one. Transfer station. Before you get into this, sometimes we do get questions about why does the town of Bolton have a transfer station? So does somebody want to give just a quick answer to that question?
Probably the best person to answer that question is a member of the Board of Selectmen. I know you're not required to have a transfer station, but it is a service that the town does provide and is subsidized to a certain extent by the tax rate.
And we historically have always had a transfer station. And aren't we also required to have mandatory recycling in town?
Yeah,
Randy?
that's correct. Yep.
It is,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Yep.
part of that is the recycling effort, which we have to have. So we have always, as long as I have lived in this town, which is going on 34 years, we've had a transfer station.
When we moved in 25 years ago, we were still doing the landfill up at the dump. And somewhere along the way, about 2 years into that, would have been 99 or so, there was decision between transfer station, private pickup, and pickup around the town, sponsored by the town.
Got it.
I think the main, believe it or not, one of the reasons to have the transfer station at the time was actually the social aspects of the transfer station.
I think that's still the case.
Yeah,
All right. Well, thank you for entertaining that question. Sorry, go ahead, Leslie.
I know it's been helpful because a lot of the disposal contractors, a lot of townspeople are having trouble with their private disposal contractors. So the fact that we have a transfer station has been helpful for them to dispose of their recycling and their trash.
yep,
A lot of like people go 2, 3, 4 weeks without their trash being picked up.
yep. Yeah, I'm hearing
Yeah.
that all the time.
So yeah, so there's a big issue right now.
No, thank you for that context. So can we just walk through these? I mean, the wages and wages overtime, looks like there's an increase in wages, which I'm assuming is more than just step. That looks like an actual bump up. Do you know what's going on there?
Let me look. Yeah, I don't know. I can't, we'll have to get back to you. I'm not sure where, because the breakdown is staying the same. Should be about 1,000, should be about $2,000, and it's showing, 13,000 increase.
Huh.
It may be a typo. It might be a typo on our part.
Might be a
too.
typo, might be 45. Nanachka, could you confirm that?
Sorry, you're muted, Nanachka.
I'm
Yeah, it
looking
looks
at
like it's adding up to the 50. I'm wondering if last year, I don't have last year's.
last
budget.
year's number
42.
is is one employee was 32 and the other employee was 21, so that's 53. So I think that the figures for historical figures are something is not correct with that, and I didn't pick up on it.
Mm.
So just to be clear, for FY23, the amount that was appropriated was 42,000 for wages, an additional 10 for overtime, for a total of 52. So are you saying that last year it should have been this line should have been like 51?
I don't
Should have
know.
been 53. According to if you go to salary and labor we submitted, fiscal 23, we're showing one employee at 32,585 and the other employee at 21,723.
But keep in mind,
comes up.
Randy, we split those. Like
Yeah,
one,
and they are split. They are
they're
split.
split by like one employee, 16 hours goes to highway, and then the remainder goes to transfer station, and then the other
Mhm.
one, 48 hours goes to transfer station and 32 goes to highway.
That's
So I
correct.
wonder if there was something wrong with the split.
Yeah, I don't think it's calculated outright. So there's something
Well-
wrong with the historical numbers, I think. We can,
Okay,
we will verify those and send you
Yeah.
get a correction to you if it needs to be.
Okay, yeah, I apologize that right now on my computer, I don't have the wage backup sheet in front of me. But that being what it is, let's just first, so that we don't have to have you come back to talk about this budget again. Let's just first clarify that once the wages number is what it's supposed to be, there's no actual requested increase in like hours or anything like that. It's just carryover from what we've seen in prior years.
That is correct. There's no proposed increased labor there. No.
Okay, so then we can kind of focus on the second half, where, we'll probably have an increase in electric that we'll talk about, but can you say a little bit about the trash
Trash
disposal?
disposal, that 14,000 basically is the purchase of the pay-as-you-throw bags.
I'm sorry,
Now-
you cut out for me. What was it? The purchase of the what?
Pay-as-you-throw bags. We're
Oh,
transitioning into getting away from the stickers to a colored bag, which will help us identify and ensure that the trash that goes into the compactor is appropriately paid for. I've done some studies in the past where we process a lot more trash on the compactor side than we collect in fees for the existing stickers. So I think that stickers are just being missed. They're hard to see. Small stickers on a bag, they're hard to see. So by doing the colored bags, we hope to get better compliance at the transfer station, and it would be offset basically by increased revenue on the revenue side.
okay.
And Randy, do you expect that to cover the year's worth of bags?
I'm trying to recall how many we ordered up front. It's pretty close to a year. But it's really going to be a function. I don't know how fast they're going to go either. I mean, that's the other thing.
It's probably tough to estimate when we're just starting.
When we're just starting, and they've been ordered. We're hoping to implement the program in February, depending upon the delivery of the bags. So
Well, I would assume though, we're keeping some records of the stickers that are being purchased. So
Yeah.
the bags are basically a 1-for-1 replacement for both the orange and green stickers. So, if you know how many of each of those you're selling each year, then you kind of hit it. More likely, we might see an increase because people in town who might have availed themselves of disposal of garbage without buying a sticker will now need to purchase a sticker. So, those numbers might go up a bit. And we also haven't fully determined what the cost per bag is. Randy, are you making an assumption on these figures that the bags will be at the same price as the equivalent stickers that the bags are
No,
replacing?
the stickers to purchase are more. I mean, the bags to purchase are considerably higher than the stickers. That's that delta. That's that 14,000.
Okay, that's the delta.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. The disposal fee, we'll say sticker versus bags. That's the one that we've decided to let's give it some workout time, see how the revenues go and stuff, and see whether or not that needs to be adjusted.
Well,
On the revenue.
I think regardless, I think it does need to be adjusted. We haven't adjusted those prices in a long time, so that's.
You're probably right, but I
Yeah,
think the
separate
decision,
conversation.
my recollection of the decision was to, but right now, let's keep them the same.
Yeah, so we'll get better compliance from townsfolks. We won't be getting out of town people or less out of town people coming in because it'll be a lot easier to spot them. So I think from a compliance standpoint, all around, I think it'll be an improvement.
Just looking it down a little bit, I feel like a couple years ago, we saw some pretty hefty increases in the costs related to recycling, hauling, and processing. But I don't see you projecting an increase for FY24, and it looks like your costs so far for this year are right at about 50%. So has that kind of stabilized? Recycling
Actually, no.
costs? No.
Believe it or not, cardboard now, we used to get revenue for cardboard. Now we're paying to get rid of the cardboard. Glass, that price of glass has gone up again. We're now pay more per ton to get rid of glass than we do our compacted waste. So recyclables are a moving target still. The market hasn't settled. I think you're referring to the old China sword where, all of a sudden the recycling market is all going over to China. They closed the market to everybody, and there were barges filled with recyclable materials out floating around in the Pacific Ocean.
Mhm.
Like,
But for these two lines anyway, you're still comfortable with leaving them level funded?
for right now, yes, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're
keeping better. I'm keeping a separate spreadsheet now this year. I started this year with, for each commodity too. So we have a better idea of the quantities of commodities that we're receiving. And,
Other questions on this budget? See any? Natasha, remind me that we want to vote on this later after we talk about electricity.
Am I muted? No, I can't tell. So I just went on Splashtop to look at the budget from last year for transfer station, and Eddie was only budgeted at 8 hours for transfer station, and he's 16. Same. So part of his was in the 421. That's why you're seeing that increase in the 433.
Okay.
Really, 8 hours. I mean, it's 8 hours per. You sure it's not 16?
That's what the budget said. It was 32 in 421 and 8 in 433.
For FY23.
But
Yeah,
for FY23 or 22?
3. That's why you're seeing such a significant jump. Part of it was in 421 and now it's in 433. I think it was just a.
But if you said he only had 32 hours in 421 and just 8 hours, what happened to the other 8?
Well, he has 24 hours.
24 and 8 is only 32. So what happens to the other 8?
No, he was 32 in the highway and 8 in transfer station for 40 hours a week. In the FY23 budget.
Yeah, we'll have to look at it. I'm
Yeah.
not sure. I think it was probably a typo or something on our part or whatever. I don't think
Yeah, so it's not an increase in hours. I think it was just allocated
differently
last year.
Okay.
That's all.
All right. Well, we'll get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, we'll figure that out.
All right, let's go on down to sewer 440. And we have a pretty big jump here. So who wants to take that?
The biggest increase looks like it's the I'm just looking at my budget here. Something doesn't make any sense. Oh, the 15,000 from 1,000 to 15,000. The DEP, they did I think I mentioned last year, they did a inspection of the facility. We also had an evaluation done of the facility, engineering evaluation that was required by the DEP. And in that report, they identified a number of items that we have to start planning for and performing the replacements of equipment, et cetera. So this is to continue to get us going. I mean, we spent some money this year replacing a mixer, getting the fire alarm and intrusion alarm are being repaired. We've got other pieces of equipment at the wastewater treatment facility that we have to replace that were identified in the DEP report. DEP permit to discharge wastewater into the ground.
Okay, so just to make sure we're understanding, there's a 2000s, sorry, go ahead.
No, and the other thing is I mentioned this last year at the budget. Historically, items like chemicals, which were consumables, were paid for under that warrant article that had passed a few years ago. And I did not think that that was an appropriate expenditure because it's a consumable. Warrant articles should be for capital items. That's why we, that's also the part of the increase on the repair side is chemicals for operation of the facility.
Okay. So first, for the purchase of services, there's an increase of 2,790. What is that?
That's the contract services for the wastewater treatment facility. It's operated by a private company, appropriately licensed, and that's their COLA and projected COLA increase.
And that's Whitewater?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So that's 2,700, basically Whitewater contract increase.
Yep.
And then the 15,000 is for those repairs,
chemicals, consumables.
Yep. And the so the DEP report, this is like not lingo that I'm super familiar with, but the DEP report, does it sort of project how long how many years this level of expenditure is going to be necessary? Is it kind of like going forward indefinitely, or?
Every year the plant gets older and older. So you're going to start seeing, pumps start failing that need to be replaced. Could be chemical feed systems that, have start to fail. They need to be replaced. It's no longer a new facility. So every year it's sort of like owning a vehicle. Every year of owning a vehicle, you're spending a little bit more in repairs and maintenance on that vehicle.
Okay.
And
Right.
Historically, the wastewater facility treatment industry, their equipment is not cheap. It's very, I wouldn't say specialized, but historically it's not cheap. It's crazy, some of the stuff.
We're talking about the wastewater treatment facility for the Emerson, Sawyer, and Public Safety and the library, right?
That is correct, yes.
Don't we have an article every year that we're putting money into for capital?
For capital,
that?
Yep.
So is that money that we're raising being used against these line items?
Now, bear in mind, there's a definition of capital over a certain dollar amount with a lifespan of more than 10 years. Like repairs to the fire alarm system or intrusion alarm system aren't necessarily capital repairs because the cost was less than $5,000 each. Maybe Ninochka can elaborate on the cap, but my recollection of a capital repair is over a certain dollar amount. I think it's 5,000.
I think according to our policy, it's 10.
10.
And so basically this 15,000 is for those, like you said, the
Smaller type.
Yep, the smaller repairs.
All right,
Smaller repairs and consumables. Yep.
okay.
Should we add a line under sewer for supplies so we can separate some of the consumables from the repairs?
Any thoughts on that, Ninochka or Randy?
I
know
don't
how you
have an
track
objection. I don't have an objection. My suggestion would be to put a dollar in it so that you can expend it, and then next year we can adjust it, accordingly for our consumables.
Ninochka, is that all right?
That's fine.
Okay. Bob, you said basically supplies, right?
Oh, sure, or whatever the appropriate.
Supplies slash
Description.
consumables or something, whatever.
Sorry, somebody needs to, there you go. All right, so we could do something like that for the time being. Any other questions?
Yeah, Brian, on, let's see, row 464 and 465, and also I guess 460s, 470, I guess now. Can we get columns K and L filled in so we have the adjustments that are going on?
I'm sorry.
So line 5241, we have repairs going up by 13,000, yet the change is still listed as blank. And the
Oh,
percentage
yeah, all of this,
blank.
I'm highlighting this and then I'll send it to Nanachka for her to do it tomorrow. This isn't going to be, this is just like a messy spreadsheet that will change later.
Okay.
Is that what you mean? Like this
Yeah.
will be adjusted. Yeah, once we,
Sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
is that okay? Or was there something that you wanted to try to see?
no, that's good.
Okay. All right, so is there a motion on this one?
I move we approve the sewer budget.
I second.
Okay. Roll call, Bob,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Craig,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
and I'm also a yes. Okay, water. Go ahead, Randy.
It's basically the two public water supplies we have in town, the library and the public safety building. They're transient, not transient water supplies. Just the cost associated with operation of the facility. I'm not sure why it says surface water SWD. I mean, Safe Water Drinking Act assessment. I'm not sure. That's kind of like something that they did like 20 years ago. We've been paying the O&M cost operation for Whitewater out of that account.
That was a Joe, former guy's recommendation to change it to that.
But this is really
Really?
purchase of services.
Contract
That's what it used to
services,
be.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And looks like repairs
I-
are going up. Good.
Yeah, no, repairs is backflows and whatever needs to be done relative to public water supply.
So I did have a question about this. So you're asking for $1,500 more in repairs. But it looks like none of the 1,000 from last year has been spent yet. That may just be a timing thing, but you really think you're going to need 2,500 for repairs? Here, I'll show you what I'm looking
Yeah,
at.
I see where you are. I'll be honest, I'm not sure. I didn't write down why I changed that. I'm trying to think what we've got out there right now. Leslie, do you know how much we spent? How much did we give December? What we spent in December through December?
I could get it through, you mean through this December?
Yeah.
So here, I've got that right here, right?
I could, do you have it?
Yeah, I think I'm showing, it looks like
Yeah, we haven't
allocated
spent anything out of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
If you want to reduce that down to that back to the $1,000, I'm okay with that because I'm not sure why I did 50. I
we
increased
did
it
have,
by-
it was water repairs, that's what you had it listed as, but
Yep. Yeah, I do have that, but I don't know why I increased it. off the
okay,
top
so
of my head.
we can drop that back down. We're scrimping and saving. I'm sorry.
Pay for an electric bill someplace.
Yeah. All right. I mean, Y'all can overrule me if you want, but I'm just gonna go ahead and do that for now. Is there motion to approve water 450?
I move we approve water.
I second.
Okay, roll call. Bob,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Craig,
Aye.
and Greg.
Aye.
Okay, we're actually like almost on time. This is great. All right, cemetery.
Biggest item, the increase is related to purchase services, which is the gentleman who digs our graves for us. He's gone up $100 in $100 in each opening.
Okay. Um, any other questions about cemetery?
You'll see, I don't know if it's showing up in the status yet, but like grounds maintenance, we just, in that windstorm, we had a pretty big tree come down in South Cemetery, and the cost to remove that was like $3,400,
3,700.
$3,700.
Okay.
So that's just about wiped out.
Yep. Okay. If there are no questions, is there a motion to approve 491 for a total of $8,800?
I move we approve cemetery budget for $8,800.
I second that.
Okay, roll call. Bob,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Craig,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
and I'm a yes as well. And just last thing before we talk at a high level about capital is the celebration Memorial Day, where we're and Leslie, I thank you. I think you included a note kind of explaining this, but why don't you go ahead and tell us what the increase is for?
Okay, well, the gentleman who we used to purchase our flowers from passed away. So his company closed. And even then, we were almost maxing out at the price. So now this year, we don't know what to expect in terms of the vendor we purchased the flowers from. But again, so we had to increase the bottom line a little bit, but this also covers flag replacements, hardware replacements for flags, POW flags, thing all around town, the flags you see on Main Street, the flags at each building.
Yep. Thank you. Totally personal note. I think it always looks super nice. So,
Thank you.
Any questions about this one? Okay, is there a motion to approve for $4,000 the 692 budget?
I move we approve the celebration Memorial Day budget for what, $4,000?
Yep.
I second that.
Okay, roll call. Bob,
Aye.
Bill,
Aye.
Craig,
Aye.
Greg,
Aye.
and I'm also a yes. Okay, well, we made it through most of the operating budget. We'll go back to a couple to vote later, but Randy, what would be easiest to just kind of go over some of the capital? Do you want me to pull up anything, or do you just want to talk us through what the plan's looking like so far?
Why don't I just talk you through? I'm not sure, what Don has included in his final list or not, but I'll go over what I submitted in 10,000 foot level, and we'll go forward from there. First item I had is the capital project request. It also falls under buildings, is the replacement of the roof at the fire station. A few years ago, the town, before I got here, did a roof repair on that building. That repair has failed, keeps failing. We've had numerous contractors up there. The original person that did the project stopped answering our phone calls. So it's leaking into the vehicle bay at the fire station. So under design right now is replacement of that roof with a, I believe it's a membrane is what's being proposed. Pretty expensive project. That's going to be about $345,000 to replace that roof. Best guess right now. In the building assessment, we carried a figure of like 300,000. Talked to the engineer as I was preparing the budget, and he said that the bidding market that exists today, he said it'd be better to include a little bit more. He suggests that 345. What we'd like to do is finish up the design, get it advertised, get a bid opening just shortly before town meeting, so that we'll have an actual price at town meeting. If it's decided to be a warrant article, if the decision is taken, taking the funds out of something else, ARPA or whatever, I don't know. Then that's the decision will be made at that point once we have a better idea on the actual constructability cost.
Quick question. This could be completely inapplicable, but Notchka would want me to ask. Has there been any exploration of whether like solar panels on the roof is feasible for something like this? I have no idea what it would cost or if it's even possible.
I don't think the roof would sustain the weight of the solar panels under current snow load standards that are required. Because we were looking at that. We were debating whether we could go over the existing roof with a new membrane, or if we had to strip the old one. And it looks like the structural calculations are they probably likely have to strip the old one off because of the way it was constructed.
Okay.
Yeah, we've also had some discussion about potentially using the stabilization fund for this purchase, but making sure we have a plan to put the money back.
Okay.
Yeah, I think Don did mention that. And it slipped my mind. That was a possible funding avenue as well.
Yeah.
So there's the large roof project at around 345, we think, and what else?
There are numerous smaller projects under the same category as buildings that Don and I are still going over. I don't want to get too deep in those weeds yet because I'm not sure which will occur this year versus be pulled off and put into a future year.
Okay.
When I did my 5-year plan provided to Don, I tried to keep annual costs kind of level at about $300,000, with the exception of this fiscal year, because that would have only been one project at $300,000. I kind of doing that in a selfish way too, because even at $300,000, that's a pretty heavy lift for us to manage and get it out with our staff, with basically me putting everything together. That's a heavy lift. So it's still pretty ambitious, but Don and I are still going through that capital improvement plan for the buildings.
Okay.
Okay. So I don't want to get too deep into that.
Yep, sure. Understood. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I'm assuming like there's some vehicle stuff and I think also there was like a cemetery thing. So I'm sure you'll say something briefly about that.
Yep. I submitted only as initial capital project request was to replace the pickup. A few years ago, you approved a Ford pickup truck, a 3/4 ton. I had the unfortunate experience of riding in it one day when it experienced a death wobble, which is inherent in Fords. Don Baum and I were coming back from a field trip to New Hampshire. We went up looking for cemetery sheds that were approved at last year's town meeting warrant. And we were in 93 in Lawrence when we experienced the death wobble. We were in the second lane passing a tractor trailer, and the death wobble basically is the vehicle becomes uncontrollable. Each front wheel moves independently. You have no control steering wise. The only thing you can do is slow down. I thought for sure we lost, like, the wheels were going to fall off. I thought we lost, wheel lugs. And we pulled over to the side, inspected the wheels, got back on the interstate and the highway, and took it very carefully, slowly home, back to Bolton. But we stopped at the dealership on the way in air. This vehicle has 16,000 miles on it. And they said, "Oh yeah, we know what it is. Ford has a repair, but we don't have the parts. We don't know when we're going to get them. We can put you on the list." So I think it was 2 weeks ago, it went back to Ford that the parts came in, they made the repair. At the same time, because of the death wobble, it totally messed up other components within the front end, and they actually wanted to charge us another $800 to repair tie rods and ball joints or whatever. And Don Baum says, you can charge that to Ford for a vehicle with 16,000 miles. My request was submitted before the repair was made, and it's, from what we learned, the repair is like a stopgap measure that Ford has implemented. Basically, they put a shock absorber on the steering linkage. It's a design flaw within Ford's, has existed for a number of years, I think in excess of 10 years. If you Google Ford death wobble, there's a whole bunch of YouTube videos on this problem. It's well known. So it's been repaired with the absorber. Hopefully it'll be okay. I think we'll keep it. So this pickup truck may go away. It's really up to Don at this point. I would not be unhappy to see it go down the road, trade it in for a General Motors product. Not that I'm real keen on General Motors products; they have their issues too. But having experienced a death wobble, and it's a vehicle we take out of town for parts and paint and other things that we need, I'm not entirely 100% comfortable sending an employee out on a trip someplace and have the employee lose control of the vehicle. One of the interesting things about Ford, what they told us at the dealership was, our recommendation is don't bring it onto the highway. and I said, how would you tell a private individual with, a King Ranch F-350 or something like that, spend $100,000 on a pickup truck and experience this death wobble and you can't take it on the highway? I mean, I as a individual, never mind out of town, but as an individual, I'd be really upset. But so anyway, that's my story about the death wobble.
Randy, a quick question. Is this truck still under warranty?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I won't ask you to embarrass the dealer you took it to. I'll ask you that offline. Because I've been doing some Googling.
Yeah. It's a 2018. So I believe it's still under warranty. It's only, three. I don't know if it's a 3. It's a 2018 . So I don't know. Maybe, may not be.
All right. Well, I'll reach out to you separately. I want to ask you who you're taking it to. So I know some folks at Ford. So maybe we can.
Yeah. I mean, it ended up in the end. They repaired it. Didn't cost us anything. We haven't received a bill for it, so that's good. So in the end, it's resolved itself. But
yeah, all right, I'll talk to you offline.
All right, thank you.
Very scary.
It really we weren't speeding. We were in Lawrence. I think we were probably doing like 60. We were passing a tractor trailer on our right. We were in the second lane, and that section right there, I think it's 4 lanes. We were going over the Merrimack River, and I literally thought the wheels were going to fall off. And if it had been a normal Interstate 93 at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 9 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning, we would have caused an accident because of it, for sure.
That is really scary.
Yeah. It's Google. It's very interesting to Google. There's a whole bunch of YouTube videos on it.
Well, I was just looking, there's also maybe a class action lawsuit, so.
Yeah. Next capital submittal that I submitted, and again, I don't know its status, was for the cemetery, a water tank for the cemetery. This would be for South Cemetery. This is a repeat request. This was on originally last year and didn't make the funding cut, didn't make the funding list. There is an existing dug well at South Cemetery, and over this past summer, we received a number of calls from family members with people buried in the cemetery. They went to the well to try and get water to water the flowers that they placed on their family members' graves, loved ones' graves, and the well went dry. There's a hydraulic connection between the swamp next to the cemetery and that well. So being that it was so dry last summer, swamp dried up, well dried up. So this is to have a tank, two 1,000-gallon water tanks with a couple of hand pumps for use by the residents and loved ones of people in the cemetery.
Okay. And that's around 6,000.
Yeah, I think I asked Don to update it, but I think we kept the 6,000. We thought it was still good.
Okay.
Next, I'll give you a brief update of one of the capital projects we're working on is the Forbush Mill Drain Project. I think I mentioned it's currently under design, and we've applied for a FEMA grant for its construction. We're paying for the design out of Chapter 90. And FEMA has very strict rules and regulations with regard to procurement. So I've elected not to seek funding for construction phase services for the engineer. I would have had to go out for a separate bid, and I'm never comfortable with that model, only because you want the person who designed the project to also be involved in the construction of the project, because another guy coming in just during the construction phase is going to disagree with something that they came up in design, becomes a finger pointing issue, and ultimately it's going to cost us more. So we're looking at, we have to cover the construction phase engineering. Today I had a conversation with the MEMA rep who is reviewing our 500-page application for this grant. And he had a few comments and a few things that we have to, a few clarifications we have to do. And it looks like the FEMA is not going to make a decision to whether or not this project will be funded until fall, at the earliest, fall of 2023. So I think this request that I had for construction phase engineering, this probably will be showing up next year as a more appropriate point to seek it, because you have, with the FEMA, you have to appropriate and authorize the full project costs, because you can't sign a contract without an appropriation, and the FEMA is a reimbursement grant. So we need to appropriate the full dollar amount of the project, and then we seek reimbursement for the grant amount for the construction. So I think the construction level construction phase engineering will probably show up next year as a request for a warrant article. Another project that I submitted, and I don't know its status. I doubt it's going to happen. It may or may not. As you know, we've had some significant issues at both the public safety and the library with regard to HVAC system, heating, ventilation, air conditioning. We've had issues at the public safety where we've just had probably $100,000 insurance claim related to a failure of the HVAC component in the HVAC system. The insurance company hired a forensic engineer to come in and evaluate the failure that caused our water problem. And one of his recommendations was to take a deep dive into the HVAC system and do what's called a retro recommissioning, basically bringing the system back to its original design. And right now, there's been a number of changes and tweaks to the controls, to the operation of the system that we don't know if there's some control issue that has been done that caused this failure or whatever. So the theory is, let's bring it all back to as originally it's designed and intended, and then move it forward from there. It's called retro recommissioning. Same thing at the library. When they built the library, there was never dehumidification of the library was not included for some reason. So virtually all summer long, we're seeing humidity levels in the building between 70 and 80% humidity. Humidity, if you think about it, is a function of what's the dew point, and weather forecasters will refer to dew point. And in the simplest terms, it's not exactly 100% accurate, but it's a ratio between the temperature and the dew point. When the temperature and the dew point get very close to each other, you get 100% humidity and fog. Well, in the summer, we may see external dew points in the 70s, and the air conditioner will shut off in the library at night, and the temperature will get very close to the dew point that's already in the building because there's no dehumidification mode within the building, and you'll see the humidity level within the building jump up to 60-70%. And obviously having humidity like that in the library with paper volumes and stacks, it's not healthy for the books and stuff in the building. So the theory there was, same company suggested doing the retro recommissioning. I spoke to the forensic engineer about it as well. And he thought that it seemed like the first good step to get a better understanding of what the intent of the HVAC system in the library, in the library is, and then move forward from there. If we have to add a dehumidification coil or something like that, it'll give us the information we need, rather than, let's try this. And then if it doesn't work, well, let's try this. Let's bring it back to it was originally designed and intended, and move forward from there. Again, I don't know if that will fly or not. I don't know.
Okay.
I also submitted a proposal that I received to put in monitoring video cameras at both the transfer station and public works facilities. And I think that's being contemplated, as well as possible other funding sources. I'm not sure. I mentioned we've started doing liquid application of anti-icing materials, both as a pre-treat and also pre-wetting the sand. And right now we're buying the brine and organic material pre-mixed. It's an 80-20 mix. And we were looking at possibly getting our own brine machine, make our own salt brine, and then we could add the organics separately. There's price differential. Obviously, when you buy it pre-mixed, you're paying a lot for water at an 80-20 mix. So I actually ran a calculation out, and if we had our own brine machine, estimating if we use 20,000 gallons of a total mixture a year, the payback period is something around 2 years, something like that. So I don't know where that stands, but that's something that we're thinking of. It's not vital that we get tomorrow, because we can still buy pre-mixed. But if we could, do our own brine mixing, and it makes, snow and ice budget, those costs will go to something else.
So just, this may be a silly question, but just to be clear, right now, the costs of you purchasing the brine are captured in the road salt line.
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, so it would basically be a savings from that line if we were able to make it ourselves. After 2 years, basically, it would pay for itself.
It would pay for itself. The capital would pay for itself after 2 years. One of the, one of our challenges we're looking at is, to make the brine, obviously you need water. And we think we can do it with the old fire tanker. That's still to be determined on whether that's possible to do.
Okay. So does that cover it?
That covers all of capital. Again, I didn't want to get too deep into the, into the buildings until those get fleshed out better. The individual projects get fleshed out better.
Okay.
But I tried to split the projects for the buildings a little bit for each building, not just devote everything to one building, with the exception of the roof for the fire station. That's a big hit.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, we'll definitely be having more conversations with Don Lowe about this. Before we let Randy and Leslie go for the evening, are there questions that folks have? And I apologize in advance if you hear my dog, who's going to start whining soon because it's apparently time for her evening snack. So just ignore that. Any questions for Randy and Leslie? Well, thank you so much for being here. I know it was a long night, and we'll be seeing you again. And we'll figure out that salary issue for the transfer station. I also wanted to mention, just got a note from our town secretary that I think in the 192 budget, they may have also included an amount for the large format printer lease and ink. And so we'll just figure out, we don't want to double budget for it. So we'll just figure out where to put it and then make sure. I mean, I think we approved it in your budget tonight. So we could just leave it there, but I'll talk with her about that.
One
right,
thing,
well, okay.
one thing, one other community I used to work with, they used to tentatively approve draft, the budgets as opposed to approving them. So it still gave them the flexibility of going in and, case in point like this, if it's double counted, they could change one or the other.
Yep.
So it might be something to think about going forward.
Yeah, for sure. And actually, the next thing we're going to do, we're going to have some advisory business. Feel free to listen in because I'm going to ask Bob he did a high level analysis of our energy costs. Bob, I can let you share your screen or I can share it, whatever's easier.
Okay, I'll share mine.
Okay, yeah. So why don't we start with that? And thanks again, Randy and Leslie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yep.
All right, let's see. Everyone see that?
I'm not seeing it yet.
We see you, Bob.
All right, hold on. Oh, wait a minute. There we go.
Yep, see it.
All right, see it now. Okay, great. So we'll try to keep this pretty quick, but this was part of our attempt to get a handle on energy costs, and we had discussed a couple of times of trying to have some consistent funding increases across the various town departments. So this is a very high level, and it's an attempt to try to quantify the energy cost increases that I think we all know have been happening. Okay, so just at the very top level, the town spends roughly $200,000 a year or so on energy costs. And so I've got the last 5 years of actual costs, and FY23 is estimated, or essentially this is what we've budgeted in FY23 for energy costs. And then the chart on the bottom breaks out the energy costs by heating, electricity, and fuel. And you can see that electricity is the largest contributor, then fuel, and then heating costs. And so we're just going to walk through each one of these categories real quick. And, obviously, if anyone has a question or comment, just jump in. Okay, so here are the electricity costs for the last few years. And the bars indicate the actual and estimated costs for 23 anyway. So you can see it's dominated by the public safety building is by far the largest electricity cost contributor, followed by the library, and then all of the other departments and buildings are less than $10,000. And then the line across the top, this blue line here, and the scale is on the right. So these are actually the negotiated electricity costs that Don Lowe has been able to negotiate. And what I think this is just the cost for the generation of the electricity. I don't think it includes the distribution costs and the meter costs and all of those things, but I haven't been able to exactly confirm that that's the case, but this is obviously too low to account for all of our electricity costs. But I also think what I'm trying to capture here is the trend. So unless the trend for those added fees is way out of whack with the trend in the costs, for our purposes, I don't think it's going to make a huge difference. So,
Bob, I know for sure that I was told via email from Randy, June 25th, 2021, that our cost per kilowatt hour was 18 cents, which I assume is the transportation as well as the supply.
Okay, good. Yeah, so that make it be the full cost. So I think, my takeaway from this is that our electricity costs over the last few years have been relatively constant, plus or minus a little bit. And I'll make some recommendations at the end about what we're going to do about this. Okay, so that's electricity. The next one is heating costs. So in this case, you can see heating costs are dominated first by the library, then the public safety building is second. And then the orange line in this case, these are the heating oil costs over the past few years. And, these things, again, these numbers have been difficult to come by. So what I'm using here is actually heating oil cost data that comes from the U.S. Energy Information Administration, which provides independent energy cost analysis for the country. And I'm using the weekly Massachusetts wholesale heating oil prices over the last few years. And again, whether this is exactly what the town is paying, I don't know. It's probably not, but I think the trend is important, and the trend is probably consistent with what we're seeing. And the trend is that heating costs have increased substantially over the last 2 years. In fact, they've essentially doubled. So,
hey, Bob,
yes.
Just want to interrupt because I see Randy has his hand raised.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is great. Just a little clarification. Previous to this year, on our number 2 fuel oil, we were under state contract, which was an overhead over the port price at the time of delivery or something like that. You paid so many cents over port price. This year, we're locked in at $3.99 a gallon with downside insurance. So I think that's pretty good. I think the library is higher because they're exclusively propane as a fuel source.
Okay.
Public safety, all the other buildings are number 2 oil, with the exception of town hall with the new mini splits. They have some they're electric in that building. But I just wanted to clarify, it's not, people think heating oil. It's not all heating oil. It's some buildings are propane, like the library, Houghton, town hall, public safety are all number 2. Okay, all right, thank you. This is great. Very informative. Appreciate it.
Good. And no, that's a good point. I didn't make any attempt to break out propane costs for, right, but no, that's a good point.
So Bob, I'm concerned about where this last set of columns, the fiscal year 2023 comes from.
This is what we budgeted for 23.
Uh,
So my conclusion here, which you're probably coming, is that we have probably underestimated the heating costs for 23. So you can see that we're budgeted basically at the same level we were at in 21, which will be short of the 22 actuals, and the heating costs have increased over 22. So maybe we'll get lucky, and maybe our very mild winter will continue, and it will be fine. But I think it's likely that our 23 costs are going to be more than what we budgeted. Oh, Randy, go ahead.
No, this is great. Keep going.
Oh, okay. I saw Randy's, his hand was still up from before, I think.
I think it was, yeah, I think so.
Okay. All right. So the last one, just the fuel costs. And, here I've lumped together gasoline and diesel costs. And it's dominated, as you might expect, by the folks who are driving around the most. Police department, DPW, snow and ice. And a similar trend, we've seen substantial fuel cost increase in 22 and 23. Gasoline costs are getting a little better, but I think there's still a chance that we may be underestimating the costs for FY23, and fuel costs have increased since last year. So we may be in the same boat with fuel costs. Okay, so then that brings us to, well, so what do we do? How do we set our budgets this year? And so this is what I'm suggesting, and we can discuss if we want to do this or simplify it a little further or whatever. But electricity, that's where it hasn't increased substantially. My suggestion is our FY24 budget should be no less than the actuals in FY22. There are some cases, we saw some today, where the FY24 budget is already set so that it's above our FY22 actuals, and we probably shouldn't make any adjustments. But if it's under, I think a 10% increase from last year's budget is probably appropriate. I think both in the heating and fuel cases, we have to account for the upward trends. And I'm suggesting a 25% increase in the heating budgets and a 20% increase in the fuel budgets. And these are over our FY23 budgeted numbers. And I don't know if that will fully account for all of the cost increases, but I think it'll get us pretty close.
First of all, thank you. I know this was quite a bit of work. I think the way that you presented it and broke it out is really easy to absorb. I just had a question about the last slide. I wanted to make sure I understood what you were recommending for electricity. So if we're budgeting in FY24, what the actual in FY22 is, you wouldn't necessarily recommend a change. But if right now we're under that, we should at least make sure we're 10% above what we budgeted for FY23.
Right, exactly.
Okay. All right. And then for the other ones, it was 20 and 25%.
Right. And, if we want to simplify it and just say, we're going to bump everything by 20 or everything by 25, I mean, that would be reasonable too.
Well, I welcome people's questions or feedback or thoughts. Go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we were locked into a great supply rate, that 9.9 cents a kilowatt. Don was successful in negotiating a new contract, a 1-year contract, and I think it started just in January 1st. I have to confirm with him, but I think it's 22 or 23 cents a kilowatt supplier side. And then you have your distribution.
That actually starts in December of 2023. So we're locked in until December of 2023.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
At the 9.9. Okay.
Right.
And,
all right.
and Jenny, can you confirm, is that a 1-year or a 3-year contract? Do you know?
My memory is that it is a 3-year contract, but I can confirm that tomorrow.
Yeah, I think it is a 3-year contract.
He was negotiating, though, recall, it was a 1 year at 23, and then he negotiated a 14 or 15 cent supplier rate after that. So I thought it was 1 year at the 23, and then in next January, it goes down to 14 cents, up from the current 9 cents. But I think it's best to ask Don. You know, he mentioned it to me again the other day, and I can't recall it exactly, but
I can send a copy of the contract to the advisory committee in the morning.
So, so are you saying that should maybe potentially change the proposed recommendation as it relates to electricity?
It has to. Or
I think it would cut in half the proposal for electricity, since the first half of the year is covered under the existing rate. So the increase would only be effective for the second half of the fiscal year.
sure, but that's an increase of
50%.
50%. So 50% times half a year, you can do the math.
And I think if you look at the 192 budget, I think we did exactly 25% for electricity. I'm driving right now, so I can't confirm that, but I think that was the logic we used.
Other thoughts? Ninotchka, do you have any feelings about how we might implement some of this? Would it be easier to kind of just do an across the board, or should we hit the 3 different electricity, heating, and fuel separately? Sorry, you're on mute.
Sorry. Eliza came in. The little ones you probably don't need to do much with, right? I mean, public safety is your biggest electricity user, right? I mean, but some of them, if you look at where they're at, like not everybody looks like they're going to have a huge increase. So I'm hesitant to just do something across the board and not need it. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, number two oil has gone down quite a bit from even the fall.
Right.
I mean, a oil delivery or 2 back, I was paying $5.75, and now it's like around $4.30, something like that. So it's gone down substantially. Price of gas has gone down as well, not hugely, but it has gone down. So I guess you need to really take a look at what we were basing the FY23 numbers on. And yeah, stuff went up maybe the first half of this year, but now it's come down again a little bit.
Right. I think the important thing to consider is we're going to undershoot even with even relative to FY22. So even though prices have come down now, I think we're still going to be short.
Oh yeah, compared to FY22, yes, absolutely. I would agree with that. Yes.
Which is also why you increased your reserve fund to offset those price increases.
Yeah. So Ninotchka had a good point that if you focus on the heavy hitters, the library, the public safety building, and make sure those are right, the rest of them maybe don't matter so much.
Right. I guess it depends. Are you going to drop your reserve fund back down to 100,000? I wouldn't.
Well, also, I'm not sure that at this point we can really consider it unanticipated or unforeseen.
I don't know. I mean, like Stan said, oil prices are dropping. Like, who's to say what gas prices will be? Or, I mean, I couldn't anticipate what energy costs would be in a year.
I would leave the reserve where it is, and if we're too generous with that, then we can always fix it next year. I think things are still a little in the turmoil of distress, as my late father would say.
Sorry, go ahead, Craig.
So yeah, we have 100% certainty that our electricity prices are going to go up 50% halfway through next fiscal year. So I think we should probably budget for that at the very beginning, at least for these two big things.
Yeah. I would, yeah.
So, sorry, Bob, can you explain to me again, do your projections include that element of the electricity cost increase?
No, so I was going by the negotiated generation rates, which do not show a huge increase halfway through the year. So if the distribution costs or whatever are going to go up, that's not accounted for. And
Okay. So, so then I think maybe just to try to like sum up what we might want to do is we can use I think, at least for town hall buildings, Dawn and Jenny had budgeted like a 25% increase in electricity. Is that right, Jenny? I don't know if you're still on.
Yes, I believe that is
Yeah.
correct. It was either 20 or 25, but I think it was 25.
Yep. So we might, maybe for the big heavy hitters in electricity, we might do that. Does that sound reasonable?
Yes.
Just, okay. And then I would say for the other ones, I would kind of like to just implement Bob's recommendations for heating and fuel. I can work with Ninotchka to do that, and I would just kind of do it like straight through all of the budgets, and basically see what the net effect is. And then we can kind of, oh, sorry, go ahead, Ninotchka.
So are you talking about, so say like Jenny's, they already increased their budget. Would you be looking at the FY23 budget to increase, or what they've put in? Do you know what I mean?
Oh, so I think Jenny, I'm sorry, I think Jenny and Dawn's budget was the only one that had built in a 25% increase for electricity. I think everybody else will build in 25% increase to electricity. And then we'll do the other ones, the 25% for heating and 20% for fuel. So Ninotchka, I can send you a spreadsheet that
Yeah,
shows
just send
my-
like, yeah, just say, 25% for whatever exactly you want me to do, and I can do that.
Yeah, and Bob, just to confirm, you were using, I think when you were generating some of these charts, you were using the spreadsheet that we had reviewed as a group in December. Is that right?
that's right.
Okay,
Yep.
so I think probably what I'll do to Notch is I'll just send you a version of that. Okay. Assuming, are people comfortable with that? Just want to make sure we're.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're at like 800,000 in the hole. What's another 50,000?
Great. Well, thanks again, Bob. All right, really quickly, since I know it's getting late, I just wanted to give everybody a heads up that I have invited the 3 Bolton members of the school committee to come to our meeting on Tuesday, the 24th. And basically the background of that is originally, so I've been going to the budget and warrant subcommittee meetings just to kind of see how the budget's evolving on the school district side. And originally in December, I was gonna talk to give a brief presentation to that subcommittee about basically like budgeting from a member town's perspective using some of Bolton's numbers. And then, through a lot of conversations, seems like the district's preference is that actually we invite our school committee reps to an advisory committee meeting, and that would be the proper forum for us to share that information. So I'm not going to take a ton of time to do this right now, but I just wanted to quickly show you just at a high level. I'm not going to run through these slides, but basically what I'm trying to do is show people essentially like how Prop 2.5 constrains the town, and make sure that our school committee members have an appreciation of not only Prop 2.5, but like what is new growth, right? And why is our, like, when we have a levy limit, we can't really do anything other than exhaust it or have an override. And I just, some of these core aspects of municipal budgeting, I want to make sure that our school committee members understand. So anyway, I can share these slides with you, and you can take a look, but basically that's the plan. And didn't know if people had questions or concerns about that. No.
No, I think
Sounds
it's a great
great.
idea. And to be honest, Brian, it should really have been shared with the larger budget and warrant subcommittee, but we know why that didn't happen. So at least if we can get it out to our reps, that's a good thing.
Yep. And then just scheduling note. So I think that Thursday, the 26th, will probably be the joint meeting with the select board to hear the salary and wage stuff. And then February 28th, it'll be here before we know it, is a Tuesday. And I believe maybe early that day, like 6 or 6:30, maybe that like Tri-Town Finance Committee meeting with the district. So we would normally meet on a Tuesday anyway, but I just wanted to give you a heads up that either that meeting will happen before our advisory committee meeting, or we'll see whether we need to meet that night separately, but that is it, unless there's anything else. I actually don't want to go back and vote on those other budgets because I want to put the numbers in and then also figure out some of that wage stuff. So we can do it another night. All right, I see Ninotchka nodding. Good idea.
Hungry.
All right, well, is there a motion to adjourn? Thank you all. I know this is a long meeting. I really appreciate it.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All right, I'm just going to say all in favor, say yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, and thank you, Stan, for being here. Thanks,
Oh,
Ninotchka.
you're welcome. My pleasure.
Thank
My
you.
pleasure.
All right,
Thank
Take
good
care.
night. Thank you, Jenny.
Bye.
Good night.